To me, Global Reach Out is inspiring.
It's connecting with God, reaching out to the world, and impacting life.
The stories that shared is so personal and it deeply impacted me.
Global Reach Out to me is reach out to the truth.
Connecting hearts, connecting lives. You're listening to Global Reach Out.
Hi there. I am Dr. Gilbert Suhu, welcoming you back for the 16th and final episode of our series of talks on the topic, my work, career, and vocation. In the previous episode, we discussed belief in a good and all-powerful God, in spite of compelling evidence to the contrary, in either our own lives, the lives of others, or in the world. Living with the tension of our beliefs and reality, not aligning in any obvious or easily explainable way, makes for awkwardness as we converse with others who ask us about the apparent contradiction, and we try to respond. And in our own thoughts and feelings, this contradiction may gnaw at us and threaten to undermine our faith. The temptation to accept God's goodness and not his sovereign power to provide good in the world, or to accept God's power and not his goodness, represents the path of less resistance. It's much easier to accept. It's the problem of evil. If God is good, then why is there evil in the world? Rabbi Harold Kirshner addressed this very issue as a personal journey in trying to answer the question posed just a moment ago. When his son at the age of 3 was diagnosed with an incurable disease, he was shocked and left groping for answers. After the death of his son, right after turning 14, he wrote and published a book, When Bad Things Happen to Good People. The book represents his search for answers and finding a solution that gave him peace and permitted him to face life with poise. His book has sold over 4 million copies, a New York Times bestseller. He has helped many readers grappling with the problem of evil. His basic solution and the thesis of his book is that God is good and does his best in coming alongside of people who suffer. He has the best of intentions. He offers some help and comfort, but because he is finite in power, he cannot resolve all problems nor alleviate all suffering. God tries his best, but sometimes his best is not enough. Hence, Kirshner does not blame God for his son's death. Instead, he applauds God's efforts, although it comes short. He makes peace with God. Enough people believe what Kirshner has concluded, but what does that mean? But does that mean that they are right? They can accept suffering as a consequence for doing evil, but they cannot accept that for someone who is innocent. But the portrait we find in the Bible presents God as both loving and all-powerful. And the Bible faithfully documents evil in the world. Kirshner mentions Job as the classic example of a righteous man who suffers. After Job and his friends offer their interpretation of what has happened with Job, maintaining his innocence and wanting a court date to dispute his innocence before God, God appears in the storm and rebukes Job for his insolence. Who is he, a mere mortal, to question God's authority? God is the creator, and he, Job, is a puny creature. But Job never answers Job's questions. God does not, as to why he suffered. What we conclude is that God answers to no human. His purpose may involve the innocent to suffer. We are privy to the first of Job's book, the first 2 chapters that give a glimpse of a heavenly scene to explain the cause of Job's affliction. We are informed that God is not confined to exercise only retributive justice. That is, the righteous are blessed and the wicked are punished. Sometimes it happens that way, but sometimes it doesn't. We ask, what can be applied to Job can it also apply to us in general? Can we, though righteous, suffer? The answer is yes. But we also learn that God is not answerable to any of us. He owes us no explanation. Even if we know, will we be satisfied and happy? We doubt Job would have been pleased had he learned of the cosmic competition between God and the adversary. Hence, we are now often not privy to the why of things, including why good people experience bad things. We may assume God has his reasons, and that we might not like his reasons should we learn of it. Hiding the reason for things shows our limitations. Then can we accept that and live within the boundaries God has set for us? I recall my very first group supervisor, the person above my immediate supervisor, when I first graduated from the university and began working. Whenever we had a going away party for someone leaving for another job, we would go to a local restaurant. My group supervisor would consume alcohol. I didn't give it much thought as this took place outside the office and some others also drank. But I noticed he would take a number of drinks, one after another. A couple of months later, I heard that he had been relieved of his duties because he came to the office drunk. He should have been fired, but he was permitted to stay, whereby he worked in a different department as a lowly staff member. In other words, he was demoted. One time, I called his department and he answered. I recognized his voice but did not greet him. It would have been very awkward for the both of us. Instead, I asked for one of his co-workers who was absent. He answered, "There is no one here but us chickens." I felt bad with his answer. My former group supervisor characterized himself as a lowly chicken. He got what he deserved. This unfortunate situation we all understand. Years later, I worked at another agency when upper management decided to consolidate operations by closing an entire unit consisting of many departments manned by several thousand employees. The unit relocated to another region, necessitating people to find new homes or tolerate a long commute. As a consequence, many, including me, sought new jobs. Whereas a number of my colleagues found a new position, I was not so fortunate. I had young children at school at the time, and I didn't want to disrupt their lives by relocating the family. So I made the decision to drive the long commute and live in temporary lodging during the week and to return home on weekends. This situation had nothing to do with the quality of our work. I did not like it, but could do nothing to prevent it. Some of us complained about the unfairness of it all. I certainly resented it. Was God behind this dilemma? If so, I could not understand or figure out his point. How did this advance God's agenda, whatever it was? It's one of those regrettable predicaments that we try to make the best of. To this day, I am still uncertain as to why it happened. Eventually, I found another job and moved back home. I cannot identify any benefits of this incident. It's just one of those things that happen. In such cases, it takes faith to continue believing that God is good and watching over me and my family. Faith means that I accept his benevolence without tangible evidence to prove it. I may not be able to convince someone of what I believe, but I hold on to the truth conveyed by the Bible, which I take as sacred and authoritative. I try to live by his teaching and principles, not easy at times. From the perspective of several decades from which I can discern patterns not immediately obvious in the short term, I see God's benevolent intervention in my life and career. He guided me through the trajectory of several career moves. I worked in the corporate world for a period of my life. Then I was surprised by my transition into full-time ministry as a pastor. It was not something that I sought. In fact, I did not see myself as a pastor, nor did my wife. We had a preconceived notion of what a pastor ought to be like. I simply did not fit the description. I took much prayer and consultation with my family before accepting the church's invitation to serve as a pastor. Even then, I took the plunge with uncertainty. How would I fare? What fruit will I bear? Will I still be able to support my family, especially as my children are about to enroll at the university with its daunting tuition demands? Fast forward several more years, and I am engaged in theological education, training future pastors, missionaries, teachers, and Christian workers. I am teaching in a region of the world I did not anticipate. I made the big move in relocating and discovered that it was strategic if I want to maximize my impact in God's service. As I reviewed my multi-career journey, I realized that it was not the result of wise planning and making intentional moves that were timely and effective. I was not that wise. I cannot conceive of such a progression. Each step was necessary for the next. In fact, I had no intention of becoming a pastor. I thought it an ill-advised move, but it turned out to be essential for me to be an effective trainer of ministers because I needed the credibility of having been a minister myself for my students to accept and respect my insights and advice. Therefore, the most powerful argument for my belief that God is good and wise and powerful is the way he guided me step by step, so long as I obeyed and followed his lead. With the end of this current episode, number 16, I conclude our series on work, career, and vocation. May our faithful, good, and loving God bless you with a safe and fulfilling day and a meaningful life. Some questions and comments to reflect on. 1. Have you struggled to reconcile belief in a good God and the evil in the world? 2. Did a work-related situation challenge your faith and trust in God? 3. As you review your life and career, can you discern God's intervention and involvement?
The program is proudly presented by Global Reach Out. We welcome you to share our live enriching webcasts with family and friends through our website, global-reachout.org. Let's reach out to bless more lives together.